Hi, welcome back to Cybersecurity for Everyone. I'm Dr. Charles Harry. In our last video, we talked about the challenge of the threat landscape and some of the complexities with trying to understand the potential vulnerabilities, threat actors, effects, and the complex attack surfaces. In this video, I want to walk through a couple of practical examples of things that we've actually seen occur in the real world to highlight those important issues. In our first example, I want to talk about a website defacement. A website defacement, just think of it simply as graffiti on someone's web page. And so imagine someone has a web page up and they write, I don't like this particular person on top of it. And it's a very, very simple way of creating a disruption to a particular website. And in this case, we go back to the Rio Olympics in 2016, where an Iranian weightlifter had one of his best particular lifts disqualified. And there was a particular person at home, most likely an Iranian national, who decided that this was relatively unfair and had basically got online, found a vulnerability to this particular website, which was attached to the International Weightlifting Federation website. I exploited this particular vulnerability and, going by the pseudonym of Master of Pain, defaces the website and basically encourages the particular weightlifter to keep his head up and really provides more of a message of displeasement with the IWF. In this particular case, the hacker is what we would call a hobbyist, someone who frankly doesn't probably have an awful lot of skill at home, but is able to identify a particular weakness in this website and voices his displeasure. In our second example, we actually see a different type of attack with a different set of actors. In April of 2015, a French news channel, Monde TV5, was taken off the air.
Soldiers guard the headquarters of TV5 in France after hackers took control of the channel and its websites. This was back in April, 2 months ago. Now, police in France say they think the cyber attack was the work of a group of Russian hackers known as APT28, and not the group calling itself Islamic State as originally suggested.
It created roughly a $5.6 million financial loss for the organization, led to no access for the internet for months, and also had taken off part of the transmission network for the station for some period of time. Now, the website defacement, that graffiti on the website, was attributed to ISIS, a terrorist organization. But the evidence later pointed to a Russian Federation government activity. And this is an important example because it highlights one of the central problems in cybersecurity. We oftentimes find that certain attacks are attributed to one group or one nation, but are oftentimes perpetrated by another. And in this particular case, the effects were much more significant than the website defacement that we saw in the weightlifting defacement. And the actors are different. Now we're actually bringing in, instead of specific individuals, we're seeing implications towards a terrorist organization and later the Russian government. So just from these two very, very simple examples, we see differences in effects, we see differences in the threat actors, and differences in the overall attack against the integrated attack surface. In a third example, we see a hacking occur against a particular hotel in Austria. And in this particular case, threat actors or hackers got access to one of the central application servers inside the hotel, one that controlled the ability to encode the electronic keys, the keys that we all use to get in and out of our hotel rooms. And in this particular case, the hotel lock, the keys were unable to be encoded, basically creating a large amount of disruption for all the new hotel guests that were coming into this particular hotel. And unless the hotel came up with $1,500 in Bitcoins, probably worth quite a bit more today since this happened a few years ago. But unless they came up with $1,500, the attackers would not provide the means to unencrypt that application server, which would allow them to resume operations normally. So in this case, we're not talking about a nation state, we're actually talking about criminal actors. And we're talking about particular end effects that are not about defacing a website, but it's actually creating large-scale disruption to their normal business operations. In our final example, going to Taiwan and the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. Many of you have probably never heard of this particular organization, but they're the supplier of the system on and chip components for iPhones and iPads, a central vendor for the Apple Corporation. And in this particular case, TSMC said that a number of its computer systems and its fabrication tools were infected. And they estimated that they were going to be down for 3 days. And in this particular case, what ends up happening is that one of their manufacturing lines is brought completely down. So imagine that one of the most central vendors for Apple Corporation, one of the largest companies in the world, is taken down because of a particular hack, all because a critical vendor in its supply chain is impacted. In this particular case, we don't quite know what the motive was, but the end effects were really quite significant. We see revenue loss estimated to be roughly $250 million a year, and the gross margin was estimated to affect at least 1 percentage point. So in each one of the examples that we've talked about, whether it was the weightlifting example, the defacement of the website, whether it was the attack on the French television station, whether it was the hit on the Austrian hotel, or whether it was hitting a critical vendor in Apple's supply chain. In each case, there were differences in motive, in skill of the attacker, the target, the end effects, and the impact of in the complex attack surface. In the next video, we're going to talk about some of the practical questions and constraints faced by policymakers to address this large and complex threat landscape. Hope to see you next time.